The royal transport ship glided through space toward the Kellian homeworld, its crystalline hull catching starlight like a diamond. Inside the luxury cabin, Princess Zara stared out at the endless void, her blue skin marked with the golden tattoos that showed her royal blood. Her long silver hair moved gently in the artificial breeze from the climate control system. "Your Highness," her advisor Vex spoke from behind her. "We will arrive at the capital in 6 hours. The human delegation is already waiting." Zara did not turn around. "And my future husband?" "He arrived yesterday, Princess. The reports say he appears very ordinary. No special markings, no visible genetic improvements, no cybernetic parts." She finally faced him. Vec was a typical Kellian male, tall, broad shoulders, skin like polished blue metal, and eyes that glowed with inner light. His military uniform showed 3 silver stars, marking him as a battle commander. "How can the council expect me to marry such a creature?" Zara asked. "We rule half the galaxy. We have technology these humans cannot even dream about. Yet they want me to bind myself to one of them for a peace treaty." Vec's expression remained neutral, but she could see his disgust. "The High Council believes the humans might become useful allies. Their planet has large amounts of rare metals we need. So I am being traded for mining rights. Princess, perhaps the marriage will be short. Humans live much shorter lives than we do. Their average lifespan is less than 100 standard years." Zara nodded slowly. That fact gave her some comfort. She was 847 years old, barely an adult by Kellian standards. She could endure a few decades of marriage if it meant avoiding war with Earth's growing space fleet. The capital city of Kellios spread across 3 continents when their ship landed. Massive crystal towers reached toward the sky, connected by bridges of pure energy. Flying vehicles moved between the buildings like schools of silver fish. The palace sat in the center of it all, a structure so large it had its own weather system. Inside the palace, Zara met with the High Council one final time before the ceremony. The 5 ancient Kellians sat on thrones made from compressed stardust, their faces serious and cold. "Princess Zara," spoke Council Leader Thane, his voice echoing in the vast chamber. "You understand the importance of this union. The humans have been expanding their reach through space. Better to have them as friends than enemies." "I understand my duty," Zara replied, though her voice carried little enthusiasm. "Good. Remember, this human named Ben served in their military before becoming a diplomat. Show him proper respect, but do not forget that you represent the superior civilization. Make it clear that while we welcome peace, we remain the dominant power." After the meeting, Zara returned to her private chambers to prepare for the ceremony. Her servants dressed her in traditional wedding robes, flowing fabric that seemed to be made from captured moonlight, jewelry that sparkled with the power of small stars. She looked beautiful and terrifying, as a Kellian princess should. The wedding hall could hold 10,000 people. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to witness this historic moment. The Kellian nobility filled the front sections, their blue skin and elegant clothing making them look like living art pieces. Behind them sat diplomats from dozens of worlds, all eager to see how this unusual alliance would unfold. Zara walked down the center aisle, her head held high, trying to project confidence she did not feel. At the altar waited the human delegation. She had seen pictures of humans before, but seeing one in person felt strange. They looked so fragile, so small. Then she saw Ben. He stood calmly beside the altar, wearing a simple black suit that looked plain next to all the elaborate Kellian fashion around him. He appeared to be in his early 30s by human standards, young for a diplomat. His brown hair was cut short and neat. His skin had a slight tan that suggested time spent under a sun. He was neither tall nor short, neither broad nor thin. Everything about him seemed completely average. When their eyes met, Ben offered a small, polite smile. His brown eyes showed intelligence but no fear, which surprised her. Most beings felt intimidated when meeting Kellian royalty for the first time. The ceremony began with traditional Kellyan chants, the ancient words echoing through the hall. The priests spoke about duty, alliance, and the bonds between worlds. Through it all, Ben stood quietly, showing proper respect but no signs of being impressed by the grandeur around him. When the time came for vows, Zara spoke first in Kellyan, then in the common galactic language. Her words were formal and cold, exactly what was expected for a political marriage. I, Princess Zara of the Kellyan Empire, accept this union for the good of both our peoples. I pledge to honor the treaty that binds our worlds. Ben's vows were shorter and simpler. I, Ben of Earth, accept this marriage and promise to work for peace between our civilizations. His voice was steady and calm. No flowery words, no dramatic declarations. Just a simple statement of fact. The priests completed the ceremony with blessings in 12 different languages. When they pronounced the couple married, polite applause filled the hall, though Zara noticed the Kellyan nobles clapped with obvious reluctance. At the reception that followed, Zara watched Ben carefully. He moved through the crowd of alien dignitaries with surprising ease, making polite conversation but never trying too hard to impress anyone. When Kellyan military officers spoke down to him, as many did, he responded with patience rather than anger. Commander Rex, one of her father's top generals, approached Ben with a glass of strong Kellyan liquor. So, human, I hear you were a soldier before becoming a diplomat. Ben accepted the drink politely. I served for a few years, yes. What kind of fighting did you do? Guard duty? Supply transport? Special operations, mostly. Rex laughed loudly. Special operations. You mean like protecting important humans during meetings? Something like that. Zara found herself annoyed by Rex's rudeness, though she could not say why. Ben seemed completely unbothered by the mockery. He sipped his drink and continued the conversation as if Rex had been perfectly polite. Later, when they were alone in the royal chambers that would now be their shared home, Zara spoke to Ben directly for the first time. You handled Rex well tonight. Many beings would have been angry at his disrespect. Ben was looking at a bookshelf filled with Kellyan military histories. Getting angry rarely solves problems. Commander Rex was just testing me. It's natural. Testing you? To see what kind of person I am. Whether I would lose my temper, try to prove myself, or stay calm. I chose to stay calm. Zara studied his face. And what kind of person are you? Ben turned to look at her. For just a moment, something flickered in his eyes, something deeper than the polite diplomat she had seen all day. Then it was gone. I'm someone who believes actions matter more than words. That night, they maintained separate bedrooms, as Zara had insisted. The marriage was political, nothing more. She lay in her bed thinking about the day, about the strange human who was now her husband. There had been something about his calmness that felt different from mere politeness. It was the stillness of deep water, not the emptiness of a shallow pool. In the days that followed, they settled into a routine. Ben spent most of his time in the palace library, reading everything he could about Kellyan history and culture. Zara returned to her duties as a fleet commander, overseeing patrols along the Empire's borders. When they ate meals together, Ben asked thoughtful questions about Kellyan society and military structure. His questions were not the simple curiosity of a tourist, but the careful inquiries of someone trying to understand complex systems. Your battle formations, he said one evening as they shared dinner. They rely heavily on overwhelming firepower and superior technology. Of course, Zara replied. We have the best ships and weapons in the galaxy. Why would we not use them? No reason not to. I was just observing that different civilizations develop different approaches to warfare. What approach does Earth use? Ben considered his answer carefully. Earth has many different military traditions, but most focus on adaptability and understanding the enemy's weaknesses. Understanding weaknesses seems less important when you have superior strength. True. Though sometimes the strongest opponent is not the one you expect. Zara found these conversations mildly interesting, though she assumed Ben's comments came from the perspective of a weaker civilization trying to compete with stronger ones. The Kellyan Empire had never faced a serious military threat. Their technology and numbers made them nearly invincible. 3 weeks after the wedding, news arrived that changed everything. Long-range scouts reported strange ships moving through the outer rim of Kellyan space. The ships did not match any known design and did not respond to communication attempts. Zara was called to an emergency military briefing. The scout reports showed massive vessels with organic-looking hulls and weapon systems that seemed to be grown rather than built. Admiral Kane, the highest-ranking Kellyan military officer, looked worried. "Princess, these ships appear to belong to the Drahord. We thought they were extinct." Zara felt a chill run through her body. Every Kellyan child learned about the Drakh in history lessons, a civilization of warrior creatures who had once threatened the entire galaxy before disappearing centuries ago. They were said to be completely focused on war and conquest, with no interest in diplomacy or peace. "How many ships?" she asked. The scouts detected at least 50, but there may be more. They are heading toward the Kellyan colony worlds in the outer ring. Within hours, Zara was aboard her flagship, leading a battle group toward the threatened colonies. As her fleet jumped through hyperspace, she thought about the stories she had heard about Drakh warfare. They were said to fight with a savagery that made other civilizations seem peaceful by comparison. Back on the homeworld, Ben continued his quiet study of Kellyan military records, apparently unaware that the first real war the Empire had faced in 3 centuries was about to begin. The first battle happened near the colony world of Viridian Prime. Zara's fleet arrived expecting to find a small group of raiders, but instead discovered something far worse. The Drakh ships moved through space like living creatures, their dark hulls shifting and changing shape as they flew. They were larger than Kellyan vessels, and there were more of them than the scouts had reported. Admiral Kane stood beside Zara on the bridge of her flagship, the Starfire. His blue face was grim as he studied the enemy formation on the main screen. "Princess, I count over 200 Drakh ships. Intelligence was wrong about their numbers. Deploy the fleet in standard attack formation," Zara ordered. "We have superior weapons and shields. This should be straightforward." The Kellyan battle group moved into position with practiced precision. 50 of the Empire's finest warships arranged themselves in a perfect diamond pattern, their energy weapons charging for the first assault. Zara had used this formation dozens of times during training exercises and border skirmishes. It had never failed. "All ships, commence firing," she commanded. Beams of pure energy lanced out from the Kellyan fleet, striking the Drakh ships with enough power to destroy small moons. The initial hits created brilliant explosions that lit up the darkness of space. Zara smiled with satisfaction as several enemy vessels appeared to take heavy damage. Then something impossible happened. The damaged Drakh ships began to repair themselves. The holes in their hulls sealed up like healing wounds. Broken sections grew back within minutes. The enemy formation did not break or retreat. Instead, it began to change shape in ways that made no tactical sense. "Admiral, their ships are splitting apart," reported the sensor officer. Zara watched in shock as the large Drakh vessels divided into smaller craft, doubling their numbers in seconds. The small ships moved with incredible speed, swarming around the Kellyan formation like angry insects. "Maintain formation," Kane ordered. "Continue firing." But the Drakh ships refused to fight in any predictable pattern. They attacked from all directions at once, their weapons firing some kind of acid that ate through Kellyan shields like they were made of paper. When Kellyan ships tried to target individual enemies, the Drakh craft would merge together, becoming larger vessels that could absorb more damage. Within an hour, Zara had lost 8 ships. The survivors were taking heavy damage, and the enemy showed no signs of weakening. For the first time in her military career, she gave an order she had never expected to give. "All ships, retreat to hyperspace." The surviving Kellyan vessels fled the battle zone, leaving Viridian Prime to the Drahord. As they jumped away, Zara could see the enemy ships descending toward the colony world like a dark cloud. On the journey back to the capital, Zara called a meeting with her senior officers. The mood in the conference room was dark and confused. "How is this possible?" demanded Captain Lyons, commander of the heavy cruiser Thunderbolt. "Our weapons should have destroyed them easily." "Their technology makes no sense," added Captain Voss. "Ships cannot repair themselves that quickly. Physics does not work that way." Admiral Kane looked older than his 800 years. The historical records about the Drak were incomplete. "We thought we understood their capabilities, but clearly we were wrong." "What do we do now?" asked Captain Lyons. Zara stared at the tactical display showing their defeat. Red markers indicated the ships they had lost, while blue markers showed their current position. It looked like a disaster. "We regroup," she said finally. "Call in the second and third battle groups. Request reinforcements from the core worlds. We will hit them with overwhelming force." But the reinforcements did not help. Over the next 3 weeks, the Kellyan Empire lost 6 more major battles against the Drahord. Each engagement followed the same pattern. The Kellyan fleet would attack in perfect formation, inflict some initial damage, then watch helplessly as the enemy adapted and overwhelmed them. The Drak ships seemed to learn from each battle. Tactics that worked once never worked again. Their swarm attacks became more coordinated. Their shape-changing abilities grew more sophisticated. Most disturbing of all, they began to copy Kellyan technology, incorporating captured weapons into their own ships. News from the front lines grew worse each day. The colony worlds of Viridian Prime, New Kelios, and Starhome had fallen. The enemy was pushing deeper into Imperial space faster than anyone had thought possible. Panic was beginning to spread among the civilian population. Zara returned to the capital after her 3rd consecutive defeat, her fleet reduced to half its original size. She felt exhausted and frustrated in ways she had never experienced before. The Kellyan military had always been invincible. How could they be losing to enemies who should not even exist? In her quarters at the royal palace, she found Ben sitting at the dining table with several data tablets spread in front of him. He looked up as she entered, and she was surprised to see concern in his brown eyes. "Welcome home," he said quietly. "I heard about the battle at Starhome." Zara slumped into a chair across from him. She still wore her military uniform, wrinkled and stained from weeks aboard a warship. "We lost 12 ships. The Drak took the entire system in 6 hours." Ben nodded slowly. "The reports mention that their tactics keep changing. Everything changes. Their ships, their formations, their weapons. Every time we think we understand them, they do something completely different." She gestured angrily at the air. "How are we supposed to fight an enemy that has no consistent strategy? May I see the tactical reports?" The question surprised her. "Why would you want to read military data? You are a diplomat. I am also your husband. And I spent some time studying warfare before I became a diplomat." Zara hesitated. Sharing classified military information with a non-Kellyan was against regulations. But Ben was technically family now, and she was too tired to care about minor rule violations. "Very well. But do not expect to understand much. Kellyan military doctrine is quite complex." She transferred the battle reports to one of his tablets. Ben began reading immediately, his expression focused and serious. As he worked through the data, Zara found herself watching his face carefully. She had never seen him concentrate this intensely on anything before. Hours passed. Ben read every report from every battle, cross-referencing tactical maps with casualty reports and weapon effectiveness data. He made notes in a handwriting system she did not recognize. When servants brought food, he barely looked up from the tablets. "This is interesting," he said finally. "What is interesting?" "The Drak are not actually changing their tactics randomly. There is a pattern, but it operates on a longer timeline than your commanders are looking for." Zara leaned forward. What kind of pattern? Ben turned one of the tablets toward her, showing a complex diagram he had created. Each Drak formation tests a specific type of response from Kellyan forces. When you use concentrated firepower, they adapt to absorb more damage. When you use speed and maneuver, they develop better tracking systems. They are not just fighting you, they are studying you. Studying us for what purpose? To learn everything about how Kellyans think about warfare. Once they understand your doctrine completely, they can predict your moves before you make them. The idea was disturbing, but it made sense of what she had observed in battle. If you are correct, then continuing to fight them only makes them stronger. In the short term, yes. But there is something else. Ben pointed to another section of his diagram. They have a weakness they might not realize. What weakness? They are learning to counter Kellyan tactics specifically. Their entire adaptation process is built around fighting opponents who think like Kellyans. If they faced an enemy with completely different approaches to warfare, they would need time to adjust their learning systems. Zara stared at the diagram. The way Ben had analyzed the data was unlike anything she had seen from Kellyan military intelligence. Her people were excellent at gathering information and applying superior technology, but this kind of pattern recognition was something new. How did you see this pattern? Our best strategic computers missed it completely. Ben was quiet for a moment. Different civilizations notice different things. Kellyans look for technological solutions and direct applications of force. Humans tend to look for behavioral patterns and psychological factors. You think the Drak have psychology we can exploit? I think they have habits. All learning systems develop habits, even very sophisticated ones. The trick is figuring out how to disrupt those habits without giving them time to develop new ones. Zara felt a strange sensation, something between hope and confusion. What are you suggesting? Give me access to your military planning systems. Let me study the complete tactical situation. I might be able to design a strategy that works differently enough to surprise them. You want to plan a military campaign? You are a diplomat, not a general. I am a human who has studied warfare his entire adult life. Sometimes an outside perspective can see solutions that insiders miss. Zara looked at Ben carefully. For the first time since their marriage, she was seeing something in him beyond polite diplomatic behavior. The way he had analyzed the Drak data showed a mind that worked in ways she had not expected. The High Council will never agree to let a human design military strategy for the Kellyan Empire. Then do not ask them. You are a battle group commander. You have authority to try new tactics in emergency situations. If I am wrong, I could lose my entire fleet. If you keep using current tactics, you will definitely lose your entire fleet. The Drak are getting stronger every day. That night, Zara lay in her bed thinking about Ben's analysis. Everything he had said matched what she had observed in battle, but from angles she had never considered. The idea that the enemy was studying them rather than simply fighting them was terrifying, but it also suggested possibilities. The next morning, she made a decision that would have shocked her 3 weeks earlier. She gave Ben access to the military planning systems and assigned him a security clearance that allowed him to study classified strategic data. I want a complete analysis of Drak capabilities and a proposed counter-strategy, she told him. If your ideas have merit, I will consider implementing them. Ben nodded seriously. I will need 3 days to study everything properly. You have 3 days. After that, the High Council will probably send me back to the front lines with orders to continue using standard tactics. As Ben began his work, Zara reported to Admiral Kane for another strategic planning meeting. The news from the front lines continued to worsen. The Drak had taken 3 more systems and were now only 2 jumps away from the core worlds. Princess, Kane said privately after the meeting, I hope you have some new ideas. Because our current approaches are failing badly. I am exploring some alternatives, she replied carefully. Good. Because if we cannot stop the Drak soon, the High Council will authorize the use of planet-killer weapons. They would rather destroy our own colonies than let the enemy have them. Zara felt a chill run down her spine. Planet killers were weapons of absolute last resort. If the situation had deteriorated that far, then millions of Kellyan civilians were about to die. She returned to her quarters to find Ben surrounded by holographic displays showing ship movements, weapon patterns, and statistical analyses. He looked up as she entered. "I think I have found something," he said. Ben stood before the holographic display, his hands moving quickly as he adjusted tactical projections. Zara watched him work with growing amazement. The quiet diplomat she had married 3 weeks ago was gone, replaced by someone who moved with the precision of a master strategist. "Show me what you have found," she said. Ben activated the main display, showing a three-dimensional map of Drak fleet movements over the past month. Red lines traced their attack patterns while blue markers showed where Kellyan forces had been defeated. "The Drak are not just adapting to your tactics," he began. "They are following a specific learning protocol. Watch this." The display shifted to show battle timelines. Each engagement was broken down into phases, with detailed analysis of how the Drak had responded to different Kellyan strategies. Every time your fleet uses concentrated firepower, the Drak develop better armor within 12 hours. When you try speed attacks, they improve their tracking systems. When you use defensive formations, they create new weapons designed to break shields. We already established this yesterday. Yes, but here is what your analysts missed. Ben highlighted several data points. The Drak learning system has a critical flaw. It can only process one type of adaptation at a time. When they focus on countering firepower, their tracking systems become temporarily vulnerable. When they improve tracking, their armor weaknesses reappear. Zara studied the display more carefully. "Are you saying they cannot defend against multiple attack types simultaneously?" "Not exactly. They can defend against anything you have used before. But if you hit them with 3 completely different tactics at the same time, tactics they have never seen, their system will try to adapt to all 3 and likely fail at all 3. What kind of tactics have they never seen?" Ben's expression became more serious. "Human tactics." He changed the display to show a new battle plan. Instead of the organized formations Kellyans preferred, this strategy looked chaotic and unpredictable. This is based on something called combined arms doctrine. You use different types of units working together in ways that support each other while creating multiple problems for the enemy. Zara looked at the plan with confusion. "Your formation has no clear center of command. Ships are scattered across multiple vectors. How do you maintain coordination? You do not maintain traditional coordination. Instead, you give each unit specific objectives and let them find their own paths to achieve those objectives. The chaos is intentional. That sounds like a recipe for disaster. For enemies who expect organized resistance, yes. But the Drak have learned to counter organized resistance. They have not learned to counter organized chaos." Ben highlighted different sections of his plan. Strike Group Alpha hits their forward scouts with overwhelming firepower, then immediately retreats. This makes them think you are still using standard tactics, so they adapt their armor. While they are focused on that adaptation, Strike Group Beta attacks their flanks using pure speed and stealth. Before they can adjust to the speed attacks, Strike Group Gamma hits their rear formations with a new weapon configuration they have never encountered. What new weapon configuration? Kellyan plasma cannons modified with human targeting algorithms. Your weapons are powerful, but your targeting systems are designed for precision against organized formations. Human targeting systems are designed for hitting fast-moving, unpredictable targets. Zara felt her excitement growing, but also her doubt. The High Council will never approve this. Giving command authority to a human, using modified weapons systems, abandoning traditional formations, they will call it madness. Then we do not ask for permission. What do you mean? Ben met her eyes directly. You are a fleet commander with emergency authorization powers. The Empire is facing extinction. Sometimes commanders must make hard decisions without waiting for approval. The next morning, Zara stood before Admiral Kane in his private office. She had decided to test Ben's ideas on a smaller scale before risking everything. "Admiral, I want permission to try a new tactical approach with my battle group." Kane looked tired. The constant defeats were wearing on everyone. "What kind of approach?" "Something based on human military doctrine. My husband has identified weaknesses in Drak adaptation patterns." Kane's expression darkened. "Princess, I understand that marriage creates emotional bonds, but we cannot base military strategy on the opinions of alien civilians." Ben served in Earth Special Forces before becoming a diplomat. His analysis of our battle reports was more thorough than anything our intelligence division has produced. "Earth Special Forces?" Kane laughed bitterly. What could primitive human soldiers possibly teach the Kellyan Empire about warfare? Zara held up a data tablet showing Ben's tactical analysis. "Look at this and tell me it was created by a primitive mind." Kane read through the report, his expression slowly changing from dismissal to surprise to serious concern. After 20 minutes, he looked up at Zara with new respect. "This level of analysis is extraordinary. How did he identify patterns that our best computers missed?" "Different perspective. Different training. Different way of thinking about warfare." Kane was quiet for a long moment. "The High Council has scheduled a final assault for tomorrow. Every available ship will attack the main Drak fleet in one massive engagement. If we lose, they plan to activate the Planet Killer protocols. Give me 12 hours to try Ben's approach first. If it fails, you lose nothing. If it succeeds, we might have found a way to win this war." That evening, Zara gathered her senior officers aboard the Starfire. Captain Lines, Captain Voss, and 6 other commanders sat around the briefing table as Ben explained his strategy. "The key is simultaneous confusion," Ben said, using the holographic display to show ship movements. "The Drak expect you to attack in waves. Instead, we attack in overlapping spirals that create multiple crisis points at the same time." Captain Voss frowned. "This formation violates every principle of Kellyan fleet doctrine." "Good," Ben replied calmly. "Kellyan fleet doctrine is what the Drak have learned to counter." "You want us to split our ships into 9 separate groups with no central coordination?" asked Captain Lines. "Each group has its own objective. Group coordination happens through timing, not through direct command links. The enemy cannot predict what you will do because you are not following any pattern they can analyze." The meeting lasted 4 hours. Ben answered dozens of questions, explaining concepts that seemed to violate everything the Kellyan officers had learned about space combat. Gradually, however, they began to see the logic behind the chaos. "It might work," Captain Voss admitted finally. "The approach is so different from anything we have tried that the Drak will need time to develop counters." "How much time?" asked Captain Lines. "Enough," Ben said with quiet confidence. The next morning, Zara's battle group jumped into the system where the main Drak fleet waited. Intelligence reports showed over 500 enemy vessels arranged in a formation that resembled a massive spider web. They had been expecting the final Kellyan assault and were prepared to absorb and counter any attack the Empire could mount. "All groups, begin the dance," Zara commanded, using the code phrase Ben had suggested. What happened next looked like chaos to anyone watching. Kellyan ships scattered in 9 different directions, moving in patterns that made no tactical sense. Some groups accelerated to maximum speed while others moved slowly and quietly. Some charged directly at the enemy while others seemed to flee. The Drak fleet hesitated. Their learning systems tried to analyze the attack pattern, but there was no pattern to analyze. Different Kellyan groups were using completely different strategies simultaneously. Strike Group Alpha, led by Captain Lines, hit the Drak forward scouts with concentrated plasma fire, then immediately retreated. The Drak began adapting their armor to resist plasma weapons, just as Ben had predicted. While they were focused on that adaptation, Strike Group Beta attacked their left flank using hit-and-run tactics at maximum speed. The modified targeting systems Ben had designed allowed Kellian weapons to track and hit individual Drak ships as they tried to change formation. Before the Drak could respond to the speed attacks, Strike Group Gamma appeared behind their main fleet, using weapons with completely different energy signatures. These were Kellian ion cannons modified with human frequency modulation techniques. "Enemy fleet is fragmenting," reported the sensor officer. "They are trying to split their forces to counter all three attack types." Ben stood beside Zara on the bridge, watching the battle unfold with calm intensity. "Now we spring the real trap. Signal all groups to converge on Target Zone 7. "Target Zone 7 is empty space," protested Captain Voss over the communication link. "It will not be empty in 30 seconds, Ben replied. He had calculated the exact timing. As the Drak fleet split apart to counter multiple attacks, they created a gap in their formation at the coordinates Ben had designated. When all 9 Kellian groups converged on that point simultaneously, they found themselves in the perfect position to attack the enemy command ships. "All ships, full assault," Zara ordered. The concentrated firepower of her entire battle group hit the Drak command vessels before they could react. Without central coordination, the rest of the enemy fleet began to lose cohesion. Individual ships tried to adapt to multiple threats at once, but their learning systems became overloaded and began making mistakes. Within 2 hours, the battle was over. The main Drak fleet was destroyed or scattered, and Kellian losses were minimal. As the surviving enemy ships fled into hyperspace, Zara stared at the tactical display in amazement. "How did you know they would create that gap in their formation?" she asked Ben. Human military history includes thousands of years of fighting opponents who adapted quickly to new tactics. We learned to think several moves ahead, to predict how enemies would respond to our responses. Admiral Kane's voice came over the communication system. "Princess Zara, report your status immediately." "Admiral, the Drak main fleet has been defeated. Enemy forces are retreating from the system." Silence filled the communication channel for a long moment. "Please repeat that report." "The Drak fleet is destroyed, sir. We achieved complete victory with minimal casualties." Over the next week, news of the victory spread throughout the Empire. The High Council demanded detailed reports about the new tactics. When they learned that a human had designed the strategy, their reaction was a mixture of gratitude and shock. Ben was summoned to appear before the council for formal questioning. Zara accompanied him to the great chamber where the 5 ancient leaders sat on their crystalline thrones. "Human," spoke council leader Thane, "your tactical analysis saved our civilization. How did you acquire such knowledge of warfare?" "I studied military history and served in Earth's armed forces before becoming a diplomat." "What kind of service?" Ben's expression became more serious. "Special operations. Counterinsurgency. Advanced tactical planning." "For how long?" 15 years. Thane leaned forward. 15 years of warfare experience before age 35? How is this possible? Earth has been at war for most of its recorded history. Humans learn warfare the way other species learn art or science. It is part of our nature. Council member Kale spoke next. "You mean your entire species is trained for combat?" "Not trained, exactly. Shaped. Every human conflict taught us lessons that we passed to the next generation. We have been refining our understanding of warfare for thousands of years." The council members exchanged glances. They were beginning to understand what they had gained through this marriage alliance. "Ben of Earth," announced Thane formally, "the Kellian Empire grants you the title of Stormbringer and the rank of Strategic Advisor. You will have authority to coordinate military operations throughout our territory." That night, Zara found herself looking at Ben with completely new eyes. The quiet diplomat was gone, replaced by someone whose calm demeanor concealed depths she was only beginning to understand. "I married you thinking you were a simple peace negotiator," she said. Ben smiled, and for the first time, she saw something predatory in that smile. I am a peace negotiator. I just use different methods than most diplomats. Methods like destroying entire enemy fleets. Methods like understanding that sometimes the best way to achieve peace is to make war too costly for your enemies to continue. Zara realized that her marriage of political obligation had become something far more interesting. She had thought she was gaining a weak ally, but instead had married one of the most dangerous strategic minds in the galaxy. The war with the Drak was over, but Zara suspected that Ben's influence on the Kellyan Empire was just beginning.